A couple of weeks ago, I told you we were going to do a pigeon class because Lisa and I were talking about how much I love pigeon. There's some slight sarcasm in my voice with that. But I find that there are times that pigeon can be very useful. So what we're going to do tonight is kind of just work with like lots of variations of pigeon, some of them completely well, not completely relaxed, because can you ever really relax in pigeon, but some that are more passive and some that are more active, and noticing as we go through it how things change after we do an active kind of variation of pigeon. My theory is the more active you make a pose, then at least what I see in my own body is I get more of a release. So you might have a couple of blocks close by. And I also want you to monitor your own body. Like if something doesn't feel right, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or feel free to just make an adjustment to where it does feel better. So with that, we're going to start lying on our backs. And this is some place where your blocks might come in handy. We're going to start in supine, Supta Baddha Konasana, or supine butterfly. So this is where your knees are wide. It's usually better to start with your knees together and come back. But you do want your hips to be able to relax. So you're going to use blocks. The closer you bring the edges of the blocks to your hips, the less tension you feel. So you might feel tension on your inner groin. I don't want you to feel too much tension there. I want you to be able to completely relax. So if you feel like you're fighting the sensation in the front of your hips, just bring the edges of the blocks closer to your hips, where the leg bone inserts into the hip socket. So we want to be able to completely relax here and not think about what's going on and what we have to engage to hold it up. So in this position, it's not a stretch. More of getting our legs used to this external rotation in the hip socket. So you can adjust to wherever you can relax into it. So soles of the feet are together, knees open wide. Shifting to make sure you feel an even amount of weight on either side of your hips. And then checking in with the cues that I continue to use week to week. So moving the chin towards your neck and then drawing it up towards your throat to lengthen the back of your neck. Broadening across the front of your collarbones, creating that soft smile from where the collarbones attach to the sternum, the breastbone, and then gently gliding up towards the heads of your shoulders. So resting the shoulders in neutral and not trying to take them too far down or too far up. Bring your hands to rest on the bottom of your rib cage. So where the bottoms of your rib cage kind of curl in to make that top of the heart kind of feeling. Notice if you feel your lower back pressing into the floor, and just allow it to lift slightly away from the floor. So you find the front hip points and the back of your pelvis in neutral, front to back. Start with your eyes open. So gazing straight up towards the sky, kind of laser focusing on something on your ceiling, or maybe just a space in between. Allowing the tip of your tongue to rest where your teeth and the gums meet, and the rest of your tongue to rest flat on the roof of your mouth. And allow your mind to start to shift towards your breath. And noticing where you feel your breath naturally move into your body. Notice if you feel more movement at the collarbones or the lower belly. Maybe you feel the fronts of the ribs move forward. Maybe you feel the sides of the ribs move outward. Just notice your natural tendency without trying to fix it. Just allow your body to breathe. And can you let go of the expectation to do it right? The pigeon pose is a great pose to kind of work throughout with this idea of letting go. It's a pose that we naturally tend to tighten or engage around. It's our body's almost automatic protective mechanism to tense, to create tension. And there are moments that we will use tension to create awareness, to create strength. And noticing that as we do so, that allows us to soften, or the idea of maybe surrendering to the moment. And just that idea of sometimes when we work at something really, really hard, we try to do it right. It's that moment when we actually let go and kind of create some sense of ease around that moment. And that we find that sense of letting go, of creating more ease. Bring your inner thighs back towards each other as you bring the soles of your feet back towards the ground. Take your blocks and just take them in each of your hands. Bend your elbows to 90 degrees out to the side, and then just drop the blocks off there. So now they're on the sides of your mat. Bend your right knee in towards your chest. Keep your left foot on the ground for a moment. Using your right hand, just move your right leg in circles. So finding where the leg bone inserts into the hip socket, and almost as if you were imagining that to be soup spoon, the spoon part of it, scraping the edges of the bowl, your hip socket. As you move through this rotation, just notice those areas where it moves with ease, and notice the areas where it's a little confused. Try not to judge, just be present. And notice as you continue through this rotation, what happens. As you're present in the moment, as you just kind of stay with it, instead of trying to overthink it, do those edges start to adjust, start to shift? And then start to move in the opposite direction. And notice if it's different. And notice that I didn't tell you which direction to begin in. And just make a mental note. Which one was easier? Was it the one you chose first? or the one you chose second. And don't think too much about it. Just notice. And bring the ankle, rest the ankle on your left knee. Find your cues again, so chin tucked, neck long, collarbones wide, fronts and backs of the pelvis in neutral, ribs down and in. Notice if one side of your hips lifts higher. Your right side will lift a little bit higher, but minimize that. So take your sit bone towards the bottom edge of your mat. Take your right hand to the inside of your right thigh and gently just press it open. Continue to flex your right ankle. Notice. And then point your right toe. You just kind of move back and forth there. Notice what happens in flexion of the ankle, which is dorsiflexion. They're both flexion. And then notice what happens when you point your toe, which is plantar flexion. How does that show up in your hip? Does it change it? Maybe, maybe not. If you feel that one gives you a sense more of just connection to your hip, choose that one. So either point your toe or flex your ankle. And then start to lift your left knee towards your chest. So at this point, your low back will round towards the floor, that's fine. Reach your right hand between your legs and grab either in front of your shin or behind your thigh. And this is where you have to kind of dictate what's right for your body. Continue to either dorsiflex your ankle or point your toes plantar flex. And actively press your ankle into your thigh. So the outside of your right ankle presses in to your left thigh. Continuing to draw the knee in as you push, draw the left knee in as you push your right knee out. Notice your tendency. So we're creating tension by pressing the ankle into the thigh and the knee out. So that's purposeful tension. But notice if you're creating tension in other places, like maybe where the leg bone is in the hip socket. So can you maybe lighten up on the tension you're creating to create more ease, more softness in the outer right hip? Or maybe it's the inner right hip. I mean, this can show up for different people in different places. Oftentimes I only speak to my own experience, but just know that your own experience is your experience. So it doesn't have to be like mine. Take your left hand and grab the outer edge of your right foot. Take your right hand and place it inside your right knee. Press your right hand into your knee as you pull your foot towards you. So if you were in plantar flexion, now dorsiflex. So take your toes towards your shin. Don't allow your ankle to fold inward. So try to stack your heel over your shin. Bring your left foot back down to the floor. Continue to push your right knee out as you pull your right foot towards your left shoulder. Then take your right hand and grab your right outer foot with your right hand. Peel that side of your foot open. Press down through your left foot so that your left hip comes off the floor, and take your right knee all the way down to the floor. So this left hip comes off the floor so that you can put the top of your right thigh on the floor. Push your right foot out into your fingers, and maybe use your elbow inside of your shin. Start to straighten your left leg. Your right knee should come off the floor slightly, but continue to push the outer edge of your right foot into your right hand. Look down at your ankle and make sure your heel is stacked over your ankle. So if your foot rolls in, push more through the outer edge of your right foot. Bring your elbow inside of your right knee and gently press your elbow and your knee towards each other. Bring your left foot back down to the ground. Bring your right foot beside your left foot. Bring the soles of your feet together as you allow your legs again to rest open in Supta Baddha Konasana, this time without support of the blocks, unless you need them. Like if there's a lot of discomfort, if you feel a lot of compression in the front of your hips, by all means use the block, but maybe push them out a little bit just so you can feel that slight tension of the muscle being tight. And just notice right to left what's going on. Notice your breath. And then bring the legs back together. Keep your right foot on the ground. This time, hug your left knee in towards your chest. Find neutral of your pelvis. So low back is not on the floor. You're going to tilt your pelvis slightly forward so that the low back comes off the floor. Left hand stays on the left knee. And begin by making circles in one direction. So now we have two different things to compare it to. Does this hip move differently in the same direction than the other hip did? Do you have new or different areas that feel a little bit weird as they move through them? What areas move with ease? And then switch directions. Notice if the same way is easier on one side than the other. Notice if you chose to go the same ways, same directions in the same order as you did the other side, or if you switched. Then hug the knee in towards the chest. Rest the left ankle on your right thigh. Check your cues, chin tuck, neck long, collarbones wide. Lower back is slightly off the floor, lower ribs down and in. Bring your left hand inside of your left thigh and then start to point and flex your ankle. Notice how this shows up in your hip. And then again, notice which one brings more sensation to the hip, more awareness, more stability. Choose that option. And start to lightly press your knee away. And then reach between your thighs with your left hand as you draw your right knee towards your chest. Your low back will move towards your floor, towards the floor. See if you lost your cues. So as you drew your knee in towards your chest, did your nose point up and back? Bring your chin in and up towards your throat. Notice any tension in your left hip. So we're creating tension by flexing or pointing the left ankle. We're creating a little bit of pressing that ankle into our thigh. But what is too much? What also creates tension around that joint? And you soften around the joint as you continue to maintain awareness. A slight engagement. Then grab your right hand, left foot with right hand, so the outer edge of the left foot with the right hand. Go ahead and dorsiflex the ankle. So notice the more you pull the toes towards the shin, the more it stabilizes that ankle in neutral. Left hand inside your left knee, bring the right foot to the floor. Keep pushing the outer edge of your left foot into your right fingertips as you push the knee out. So you're taking the right heel towards, or the left heel towards the right shoulder as you push the knee out. And push down through your right foot. Grab your left hand to your left foot. Push down through the right foot so that you shift, taking your left thigh to rest on the floor. Stacking left heel over left knee. Dorsiflex the ankle strongly and start to push the outer edge of your left foot into your left hand, maybe using your elbow as a push into with your shin. Notice where this shows up. Notice where you're purposefully creating tension, the foot pressing out, the knee pressing into the elbow. Sometimes we need to create a little bit of tension purposefully, but sometimes we overdo it and it shows up where we don't need it. We want the hip to relax, so notice where you're unnecessarily creating tension and let that go. And then straighten your right leg down to the ground. Your left knee will come off the floor. Right hip moves down. Continue to press, foot out into the fingers, shin and elbow together. Bend the left knee. Bring the left foot back beside the right knee. Soles of the feet together, and again, allow the knees to rest open. Now we're letting it all go. Noticing that relationship by purposefully creating tension in order to create more ease. Bring the soles of the feet back to the floor. Hug the knees towards the chest. Shift a little side to side. And grab behind the knees and rock up. And you can take several cycles to get up, or you can rock all the way up. So come to where you can see me. So if you need to turn around, it doesn't matter if you're on the long edge or the short edge. It's not going to really matter much for today. Now sit back on our hands. So hands are behind our hips. Heels are slightly wider than your hips. Ankles are dorsiflexed. Lift up onto your fingertips. And we're just going to start to rock side to side. So allowing one knee to go towards the floor and the opposite knee to go towards that ankle. You may lean as far back as you need to do that. As you rock side to side, notice what you notice. Release the judgment of why things move differently on either side. Just notice it as a reference point. The next time you rock to the right, stay to the right. We're going to open up. So this is knees are bent at 90 degrees. So look at your shins and make sure that they're bent to 90 degrees. Your knee is in line, your right knee is in line with your right hip point. Your left knee is in line with your left knee point. If this creates too much discomfort, you can narrow the space, but ideally, if you can do it with both knees bent at 90 degrees and both hips in line with your knees, that's kind of where you're going to get the most movement. So bring your hands on either side of your right knee. So right hand goes kind of towards, you're going to shift your chest so it's pointing towards your knee. So sternum towards knee. Take your left hip back. Turn your sternum or your breastbone to point out over your knee. And then slowly start to walk your belly out over your right thigh, inner thigh. You may need to rest with blocks underneath your elbows. You may be able to rest with elbows on the floor. You may be able to stack your hands and rest with your forehead stacked on your hands. So in this position, we're going passive. So wherever you feel tension, let it go. If you're still pulling the left hip back, you can let it go. Notice where around your right hip you feel tension. Maybe you feel it in your knees, your inner thighs. Maybe you feel it in the groin. If you feel tension, can you make slight adjustments to let that go? And I am so sorry you can hear my dog bark. This is where the headphones come in really handy. They do this every night about this time. So deepen your breath. And sometimes the key to moving beyond tension, beyond struggle, is to move a little deeper into it. So where you feel tension, where you feel the body struggle to hold on, let your mind sink deep into that space without judgment. And just notice what happens as you move into the struggle. And you don't try to change, you just remain aware. Noticing your breath. And then slowly lift back up. Rotate your left leg bone back again. This time we're going to take the right hand right next to the right knee. The left hand reaches either on your left ankle, Rush, you got to move, on your left ankle or right ankle, or if you can, inside the sole of the foot. Now you're aiming your chest right towards your mid shin and come down again. So slightly different variation. Maybe you stay on fingertips, maybe you lower elbows in front of your shin to the block or to the floor. Maybe you stack your hands and rest your forehead on your floor. So just a slight variation of where we have our chest moves, the awareness in your head. So what do you feel differently? What are you holding on to? What do you let go of? Is it necessary? You're safe. Your body is being supported by the floor. Your hip is in a position of flexion, so there should be very little compression. You may have feelings of compression in the front of your hip, so be aware of that. Compression is something you don't want to necessarily move into, you want to be aware of. But can you make subtle adjustments to where that compression softens? And as you allow the stillness to settle in, can you be present with your struggle? What happens to the breath as you just sit with it? And bring your hands back to your shins, press up. Take your left hand, place it right at your hip crease. Roll your hip crease forward and you'll feel this shift. Start to shift, hand to the floor, chest towards knee, and just lift your left foot off the ground. I know I say just lift your foot off the ground. This might be really hard. It's a different kind of struggle. And it is internal rotation, Barbara, so just be aware of that. Flex the ankle. We won't stay with this quite as long as we've stayed with other things, but just to kind of fire things in a different way. Bring the foot back to the floor. Lift, shift back, right hand comes to the floor, kind of in line with your right hip. Shift, lift the left leg off the ground. So you will kind of move the chest or the side body towards your right hand, elbow bends. Straighten the leg. Bring the inner edge of your foot down. Press the hand back up and then roll onto your left sit bone. Flex the ankle. Take your right foot and just draw it in towards your right hip crease. So your right foot is not going to rest on your left thigh. It's going to rest more towards your right hip crease. We're coming into more of an external rotation here. Toe will point towards your left thigh. Flex your left ankle. Right hand comes to the floor, left arm reaches up. Press down through your right fingertips, press down through your left sit bone. So feel the side body lengthen, press the left foot down and push the heel forward. So feeling now the back of the leg extend. And then start to tilt the left hand towards right foot, grabbing either shin, ankle, or perhaps foot. Take your right hand, reach across, grab your left rib cage, and rotate the rib cage towards the right. Push the left rib cage into the hands. And then reach right arm up and over. Pull your left sit bone back down to the floor. So now we're slightly loaded with the upper body. So notice what happens to the breath. Notice where you're holding tension here. Maybe it's in the leg. Maybe it's in the upper body. Wherever you feel you're holding on the most, just allow your mind, your awareness to settle there. And notice what happens. Reach through your right hand as you come all the way up. Right hand comes back down to the floor. Lift the left sit bone off the ground. Lift the left leg. Bend the knee towards your chest. And then reach the leg all the way behind you. So now we're coming up to our first pigeon pose. Tuck the back toe under, lift the knee, press your right shin into the ground, and square your hips towards the front of the mat. Roll your inner left thigh up towards the sky. Feel that, bring the hips more into that neutral position, and lower, center of the knee down. Point the toes back. Lift up onto the fingertips, press the right shin into the floor. So creating some activity. As if you could draw your inner thighs together like you're closing a pair of scissors. And then maybe walk the hands, bringing the elbows either to the floor or a block. Start to notice where the tension is unnecessary. And then let all tension go in the lower body. Maybe stacking forehead on hands. Maybe reaching arms forward, stacking forehead to the floor. Notice where your tension is. Are you breathing? This is our first time here, so just notice what you notice. We've done a lot of preparation for this, so you may feel as if you've already started to move into this a little deeper. And bring your hands underneath your shoulders, press up. Rock onto your right hip. Bring the knee back up towards the chest. And then come back to where you started. So sit bones on the floor, heels on the ground, toes pointing up, hands behind your hips. And rock. So every time we return to a movement, we return to it to see what's changed, what remains the same, the next time you rock to the left, stay to the left. Knees bent at 90 degrees, so heels in line with knees, knees in line with hips, or any variation that you need to adjust. Bring your right hip back. Rotate so that your breastbone is looking out over your left knee. Maybe you notice that flexing or pointing in this has the same effect that it did on your back. I like to flex better. Some people may find that pointing is better. Bring your hands to rest on either side of your knee and rotate again, chest towards left knee. Easing down, maybe hands walk forward a little bit. Maybe you bring elbows to the floor. Maybe you stack your hands and rest your forehead on your hands. Once you arrive, allow yourself to move into the tension. So what that means is to allow your mind to become aware of tension that you're unnecessarily holding. If you are flexing your ankle strongly, you can let that go at this time. So this is more of a yen kind of response. So you're surrendering completely. You're letting go of all tension. But the best way to let go of tension is to first become aware of it. So sometimes it's the more obvious places, the places that scream at us. But I just noticed that I am tensing the outside of my right hip. What's that about? Doesn't matter what it's about, but being aware of it now, I can soften it. Sometimes we have tension that comes from places we don't even think about, that we're not even aware of it. And it's those things that are kind of the innocuous, kind of nitpicky things that continue to irritate us or to hold us back. And sometimes just becoming aware of those is the only way we can move into them, to move through them. Bring your hands down to the floor, press yourself back up. Again, move the hips slightly back. This time the left hand comes to the outside of your left knee, right hand comes either to the right ankle or perhaps right inside the arch of your foot. Rotating your chest so it's right over your mid shin this time. Start to walk or move your chest towards your shin. Maybe you stay up on fingertips or hands down. Maybe you bring the elbows to rest on blocks either in front of your shins or on the floor. Maybe hand stack and you rest. Wherever you are, start to check in with that tension that's always there. Maybe having the conversation with your body that that tension is not necessary, that you're safe, you're in a rested position, you're not adding load, you're not adding impact, you're close to the ground, you're safe. How does your breath respond to the struggle? I've come to learn that whatever struggle I face in my day-to-day life, it always has an effect on my breath. But the great part of that recognition is that I can usually control how much I struggle or how much I suffer by simply coming back to what I know about the breath. That the more calm and relaxed and subtle the breath is, my mind tends to be a mirror of my breath and vice versa. Bring your hands back in front of your shins, press yourself up. Take your left hand, place it in line with your hip. Roll the hip forward and back a little bit. So starting to feel the internal rotation where the leg bone meets in the hip socket. And then rock forward. Flex your right ankle, and this time you lift the foot off. So feeling that rotation all the way up into the socket. And we're holding, because it's super fun to hold. And sometimes we need a little struggle to get through the stuckness. We need to just be present with the work. Bring the foot down. This time you're going to start to lean, so bend the left elbow, lean the left shoulder towards the ground, and lift the right knee off the ground. Straighten the right leg as much as you can. Then straighten the elbow as you come back up. Sit bone to the ground, toes point up. Heel comes towards left hip crease. So you're not resting the foot on the thigh. Instead, you're pointing the toes towards the thigh, but you're reaching the knee back as far towards the left as you can. So more of that external rotation. You can even push the knee open, rotate it open. Left hand to the floor, again in line with the hip. Press through the fingertips as you reach right arm up. As you reach the right arm up, press right sit bone down. Flex your ankle strongly and reach the heel forward. Start to side bend, keeping the side long as you grab either shin, ankle, or foot. Take your left hand around, grab the right side of your rib cage, and rotate. Notice if your left sit bone tries to come off the floor. It might slightly, that's okay, but resist it down. Keep flexing, right ankle reaching heel forward, left arm reaches up, and then over. Notice where the tension is in this pose. For me, it switched to the upper body. I have a hard time breathing when I side bend. So instead of holding my breath and trying to power through it, I'm going to instead move into that dis-ease. And see if I can instead bring more ease, more breath. Maybe different from you. Reach to your left hand as you come all the way up. Hand comes to the floor, lean again. Bend your right knee towards your right shoulder. And then bring it behind you as you bring your hands now forward. Tuck the right toe under, lift the knee. Roll the inner right thigh up towards the sky. Press down for your left shin and scissor your inner thighs together. You feel this, bring the hips more into that neutral position. Just bend the knee, touch the knee down. Continue to scissor. Point the toes back. And then maybe elbows to blocks, maybe elbows to floor, maybe forehead to hands, maybe hands forward. and forehead to floor. Where do you move a little deeper into? How many times do you notice that the way that you handle struggle is to avoid it, is to try to ignore it, to try to do something else? How often does that work? The hip can represent that same sort of recognition. When we ignore pain in our body and we just think, oh, it'll go away. Pain is the body's way of communicating with us. It's the way that it tells us, hey, something is up here. We should try something different. So allowing yourself to become present with what your body is trying to speak to you is the first step in moving through it. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders, press yourself up. Start to walk your left hand out to the side, rock onto your left hip, rock. Bend your knee towards your right shoulder, and then come back. We've got time for one more round, so this is our active round. I planned on 3, but nothing ever works the way that I want. So we can either bring hands behind as we did the last time. We can make it a little bit more active by bringing your hands to your heart. So this time, when you rock, you're also using your core, your obliques, to move you side to side. You're using the hip muscles now to push the legs. My experience is I can go way further into internal rotation now. Next time you come to the right, stay to the right. Without using your hands, bring your legs into that 90-90 position. Turn to face over knee. You may use hands as we did the last time. We're going to do a little bit more active this time. You can also use your hands at your heart, and we'll do options here. So inhale. As you exhale, reach your hands back as you reach your chest forward. Press down for your right ankle and knee to lift back up, hands to heart. If that was challenging, do it again. Otherwise, arms out to the side, T to the body. Same thing. Rotating chest towards knee, pressing knee and ankle down, come back up. Maybe that was the challenge you need. Maybe arms come by your head as you fold forward. Belly over thigh, reaching left hip back, pressing right knee and ankle down. Inhale back up, hands to heart. Turn to face your shin. As you exhale, reach chest out over your shin, arms reach back. Inhale up. Maybe arms go to a T. Belly reaches out over shin. Press your foot and shin down to lift back up. Arms maybe overhead, spine long. Fold, hold, press knees, shin down. Inhale back up. Hands to heart. Lift, shift forward. Lift left foot off the ground. Hands are always acceptable. Start to shift over to the right. Lift. Left knee off the floor. Straighten, karate kick. Left leg forward. Slowly shift. Left hip down. Bring right foot in. Twist out over your right knee. Reach your left heel forward, arms over your head. Exhale, side bend, hold. Press the back of your thigh down, reach the heel forward, Pull your right knee and sit bone down. Inhale, lift back up. Hands to your heart. Shift forward. Bend knee towards shoulder. And then bring it to the back of your mat. If you need to use your hands, use your hands. Otherwise, try to keep your hands at your heart. Press your shin, right shin down. Lift your left hip off the ground. Maybe left knee off the ground. Lower down. Lift left knee towards shoulder. Bring the foot back down to the ground. Twist again to the right. Push your hips up. Come up onto your knees. Weight in your right knee. Maybe hands come to the floor. Maybe step. Left foot up. Take right foot back. So now you're in a low lunge. Hug outer right hip in. Bring your right hand to your right hip. Left hand inside of your left knee. Crown of the head, lift straight up as you hover right knee off the floor. Come back down. Right toe comes towards left side of the mat. Either hands to the floor or lift left foot up. Come back and sit down. Come back to that box position. Twist to the left. Check your knees, check your ankles. Hands to your heart, chest over your left knee. Inhale. Exhale, reach your belly out over your thigh. Hands reach back. Press down through your foot and your knee to lift back up. Arms out to the side. Reach chest forward, pull belly off your thigh, press hand, press foot, knee down, come back up. Arms over your head or any other variation. Fold halfway, hold. Press knee, foot down. Press right foot, knee down, lift back up. Hands to heart. Over your shin, same thing. Exhale, reach hands back. Use the power of the legs to press yourself back up. Arms out, fold. Power down, back up. Arms up, option. Fold, hold. Press down through legs, press down through feet, lift back up. Hands can come either to the heart or you can use your hands on the floor. Lift, left foot, right foot. Lean more to the left hip, lift, right knee. Straighten the legs, so karate chop it out. Use your hands or rotate with hands to heart. Heel comes in. Press the legs down, both legs. Inhale, arms can come over the head. If that's too much, hands behind the head. Press down through the thighs. Side bend towards your right foot, hold. Reaching right heel forward, sit bones press down. Inhale, lift all the way back up. Hands to your heart. Shift to your left hip. Bend right knee in towards your shoulder. Maybe hands come to the floor. Maybe you lift as you bring your right leg back. Press left shin down, lift, left thigh, maybe left knee. Hands to the floor, or foot to the floor, hands to heart. Bend, come back to the box pose. Press up onto your shins. hips move forward. More awareness on your left knee, hands either to the floor or step. Move hands to the floor or just step. Right foot forward, coming into that 90-90 lunge, so half kneeling. Right hand comes to the inside of your right knee. Left hand comes to the outside of your left hip. Suck your left hip under, tuck your left toes under. As if you're lifting, crown of the head straight up. Have awareness of inner knee pressing in, outer hip sucking in, lift up, hover. Notice the tendency to move forward. Then you go straight up. Lower down. Bring left foot back over to the right. Right knee back. Inside the arch. Sit back down. Hands behind your hips. Swivel. We did a lot of hip work. Notice what you feel. And our final pose, hopefully. Yep. Double pigeon. Woo! So begin with your right knee in alignment with your left or your right hip. Right, so it's not out here, it's forward slightly. Your heel is in line with your knee. So it's a 90-degree bend. Take your left ankle, stack it on top of your right knee. Your knee may be way up here, and that's fine. You can use a block, right? Notice what happens when you flex your ankles. Take your fingertips, press them into the ball mounts of your foot, and push the ball mounts of your foot into your fingers. Notice what that does. Maybe nothing. Let that go. So we create tension, and then we let that go. Bring your hands beside your hips. Make sure you're rocking onto your sit bones. So rock forward slightly. Close your eyes. You can now, if you want, let your ankles come out of that dorsiflexion. So start by relaxing your ankles. Maybe even wiggle your toes a little bit. Start to work your way up your legs. So finding the shins, the calves, noticing if there's any tension in that area. What happens if you settle with that? You move into that. You become more present with it. Notice the tension in your knee. A lot of times people feel this either on the inside or their outside of their knee. So just allow your mind to move in with it and be present with it for 30 to 60 seconds. Checking in with your breath, noticing that the effect that the tension of your body has on the tension in your breath. And you soften your breath to soften your body. Allow it to come into your hips. And just kind of start to shake your hips side to side. So wiggle your sit bones side to side, pushing the hips out side to side. So what happens if you add a little bit of movement into it? Sometimes the only way to move through struggle is with movement. So as you start to jiggle side to side, what happens? And then let it go again. Notice what that movement does, what kind of sensation that creates. Notice anywhere else that you're holding on. Why are you holding on? And then if at any point during this you start to feel some release, maybe the knee starts to move closer towards the foot, maybe you start to walk your hands forward and kind of fold forward. But allowing that awareness of tension, and that idea of what's too much, when do we push too much, when do we try to force through stuff? We need to just come to the edge and be present with our barriers. What's holding us back? What happens when we choose to let go? Always remembering the breath is a part of this. Always knowing that the option to add movement, whether it be quick little shakes or maybe it's just simple little like stirring, shifting. We have choices. Sometimes the only way to move through struggle is to look for those choices and options that make sense to us rather than the way that we're told it has to be. And slowly come up and switch. Using whatever props you need to use. Taking your time. Starting with that flexion of the ankles and that awareness of pushing balls of the feet in as you push balls of the feet out. So creating purposeful tension. Because sometimes the only way we know tension is to create more tension. Then let that go. Hands can be either slightly behind you, at your hips. Close your eyes. Notice what you notice. I'm going to take about 2 minutes here, and I'm going to be completely quiet. I've given you all kinds of cues of how to surrender, how to release, how to let go. You're on your own. And slowly notice where you are. Bring your hands back up. Let your feet go. Step your feet wide and rest your knees together. Just resting with their legs in the opposite direction. About a breath or two. And then come to a seated position, just a regular seated position. Taking a moment just to feel what that feels like after all of that hip work. Thank you for exploring the hips with me this evening. Hope that it was somewhat of a struggle and you were able to find somewhat ease. So thank you. Namaste.